God's Song, critics said, some of the finest of all rock singing on the last verse. I don't know where I got that from. I've got it written down.
Who is this wonderful critic? Where is he when we need him? Who is it? I want to send him a card. You tend to remember the dig from a critic rather than the praise, you see. That's why I'm looking at you like, oh, somebody liked it. I had this impression that everybody hated the record, and it was only regarded well about 8 years later when they'd started saying, well, it's not as good as Plastic Ono Band, about the work I was doing later, you see.
1970, as we move through, in February, Instant Karma, which was top 5, both here in America and in Britain as well. And you actually appeared on Top of the Pops. That was the first appearance by anybody connected with the Beatles for quite a while, wasn't it?
It was great. I love being first. We were talking about this last night. It's amazing.
How did you feel about doing Top of the Pops after
great.
Quite a time gap?
I love it. Again, I was talking to Yoko about the cabin today because there was 2 girls standing outside our apartment today. And they've been standing off and on for the last 5 years, right through the so-called hiatus, when I was supposed to be buried alive with, like, Howard Hughes. And I'd talk to them, say hi. I said, I saw you running across the park and all that. And as we got in the car, I said to Yoko, this is like the cabin. That's how we were with the fans. They'd be at the door as we went in at lunchtime, and they'd say, hey, John, will you sing, Sweet Little 16 for Margie and Pam, And it was on that level. I said, that's the kind of thing I miss, with the direct communication where you could talk to the audience. Yeah. I mean, you get in that sort of Madison Square Shea Stadium business where you have to overact. You have to act like 18th century actors of grand drama, which is not my shtick. And I like that direct communication. That's why I like radio too. And I enjoyed the Instant Karma thing because the people are right there. And we were talking about the fact that she was knitting, you see, because we did everything together. Now, she wasn't singing on Instant Karma. So I'm doing Instant Karma live, or it was a backing tape with live vocal, I think. And she's just sitting there knitting this scarf, and there was some review the next day, how dare she sit there knitting, But we wanted to be together, and her contribution to that event, instead of having a smoke bomb or a coloured light, a psychedelic light, Yoko Ono knitted.
Did you have total control over your product in those days, John?
Well, pretty much we decided what went out and what didn't go out. We had to fight with the company all the time.
To fight
like the live piece thing, that they didn't want to put out. They didn't like Cold Turkey. They didn't really like the extra Beatle stuff. They preferred to keep us in a box. But on the artistic level, we controlled it. We even made the covers ourselves, with Instamatic cameras and Polaroid. Cover of Imagine, Yoko took with a Polaroid.
I would imagine that having to fight, though, must be a tiring procedure mentally. I mean, it must get very boring.
But it was sort of like an invisible fight, They wouldn't really come out and say this and that, but it was sort of discouraged in a very subtle way.
Two Virgins was a big fight. That was... like 9 months later it came out. It was held up for 9 months now. So Joseph Lockwood, who I still like, he was a nice guy, but he sat down on a big table up at the top of EMI with John and Yoko and told me he'll do everything he can to help us put Two Virgin out, because we explained what it meant and why we were doing it, and he said he understood it and he'd do everything he can to help us. And when we tried to put it out, he sent a personal note to everybody saying, don't print it, don't put it out. You see, so we couldn't get the cover printed anywhere. It was really due out about 9 months before it came out.
And it didn't come out as Capitol Records. I think it came out as Tetra Gramophone or whatever.
Yeah, over here we had to go with some other firm. But now you can't get it for $200.
Now, somebody told me this when we came into this studio this morning, actually, that the Fly album is going for $35 at the moment. People are like, she smiles when I say that.
Down in the village.
Well, I wish I had some.
1971, you were both resident in New York, and Yoko, I think you were going through problems because you had a custody situation for your daughter. Is that right?
Yes.
More pressure?
That's true, I don't know how we survived. I mean, we went through so many different kinds of pressure, but...
I mean, the picture as I see it in front of me was that just when things were getting good, something else would rear its ugly head and maybe cause you a few mental problems.
But, it was very strange because we were always having a dialogue and we were always sort of inspired by each other. We were always giggling,
If we hadn't taken some of it with a pinch of salt, I think we would have both gone under, I mean, it was pretty hard. But usually one could sustain and support the other. But there were times when we both would go down. It's very hard because the tendency is to go to drink or drugs. And it's very hard to get out then. But you can't when you're involved with legal court cases or immigration problems. One has to be right on the ball.
Absolutely.
But it might have done our work good, it might have done it harm. I can't really tell yet. We seem to just go ploughing on anyway, producing it. But still, I wonder how it would have been had we not been harassed. But one cannot always blame everything on the outside. Whatever happened to us was also partly our creation. And it was probably to do with complete self-involvement and not really taking care of business on an outside level, and we're looking where we were going, instead of looking down the road, we're always looking in each other's eyes. We're not taking the position that society did everything to us.
No.
We take responsibility as well. I mean, accidents happen and things do happen to you, but we do take some responsibility for the situation.
The custody fight is really, we didn't have to go through that, really. And we shouldn't have done it on the level of court cases and whatnot. But at the same time, on hindsight, I think that at least Yoko would remember that we were interested in her. So that's sort
important.
of like a byproduct.
We still don't know where they are.
Good.
Really?
Oh, no, we haven't seen hiding a hair of them. She has a piece of paper saying custody, that's it.
Incredible situation.
Yeah.
But so many things that happened to us were so incredible that we just had to say to each other, isn't this amazing? And just laugh about it. There's nothing we can do about it,
Hard to do.
It was like a Pinter play when we were in it.
I can't believe this.
Never ended.
Believe this, yeah.
March 71, I keep pulling out these date lines, but they're important. Power to the People, another one to add to the collection. Any memories of that now? It's not that long ago, really, but it's 9 years as we sit here in this
seems hell long
December day in 1980. Does it seem a hell of a long time ago to you?
Oh, it just seems like Power to the People. Wasn't that the First World War? No, it wasn't. Anyway, I remember that was the expression going round those days, and I used to give anybody it was sort of left field, avant-garde, or in the art field or the political field money, kind of out of guilt as well, because I was thinking, well, I'm working class and I'm not one of them, but I'm rich, so therefore I have to fork out. And I kind of wrote Power to the People in a way, kind of as a guilt song, sort of, I better do that.
But incidentally, we heard it last night just by accident, so to speak.
Good intro.
And it's very heavy, very good.
We moved to Imagine in November 1971. John, it wasn't released as a single until November 1975. That's a 4-year gap.
Really?
And I think if you said to most music programmers around the world which would be the John Lennon track that they would instantly pick to play, I think it would be Imagine. It's had fantastic airplay.
Amazing. It was made in 72 and put out in 75.
November 1971, you did the Imagine album, and it was released in November 1975, eventually as a single. And I remember trying to find it on a single. I think you could get it on an American import for a while, but eventually, I think I'm right in saying that Great Britain finally decided to do something with it and put it out as a single.
Well, I must say I'm blank on why that would have happened. It must have been either because Klein and EMI or whoever was
decided that maybe it's a bit too political.
Too political, or whatever reasoning they had for him, because it was a single in America, I believe.
Yes, that's right.
And I think it was something to do with they wanted to sell the album, so make them buy the album to get it managed, some garbage like that. It surprised me. Actually, that should be credited as a Lennon-Ono song, because a lot of it, the lyric and the concept came from Yoko, but those days I was a bit more selfish, a bit more macho, and I sort of omitted to mention her contribution. But it was right out of Grapefruit, her book. There's a whole pile of pieces about imagine this and imagine that, and give her credit now, long overdue.
Everything we did together in those days, we just inspired each other.
Yeah, but if it had been Bowie, I would have put Lennon Bowie. If it had been a male, when we wrote Fame together, Harry Nilsson, Old Dirt Road, is Lennon Nielsen, but when we did it, I just put Lennon because, she's just the wife and you don't put her name on, right?
Well, that's before Woman is the Nigger of the World, I suppose.
Yes.
I have to say that on that Imagine album is a track called How Do You Sleep, which a lot of people considers was a swing at Mr. McCartney.
Well, I think I explained it pretty well in a Playboy interview. I used my resentment against Paul that I have as a kind of sibling rivalry resentment from youth to create a song.
Does it go back that far?
Oh, yeah. I mean, rivalry between two guys, it was always there, but it was a creative rivalry.
Yes.
Like there was a rivalry between the Beatles and the Stones. It was a creative rivalry. In that respect, not a terrible, vicious, horrible vendetta, because it's not on that level, but one tends to, when interviewed by a print press, you see, now you can hear the tone of my voice, you see. So I can say, I felt resentment.
I can see your face, too.
Right, you can see the face, and you know what I'm saying is, I felt resentment, so I used that situation the same as I used withdrawing from heroin to write Cold Turkey. I used my resentment and withdrawing from Paul and the Beatles and the relationship with Paul to write How Do You Sleep. I don't really go around with those thoughts in my head all the time. I wanted to make a funky track, and this is a good way to make it.
Yes.
Well, I remember when he was writing, it was a bit tongue-in-cheek. So it was the inspiration was maybe a tiny bit of
In
resentment.
fact, Klein gave me Another Day. I was saying, what is it? And he said, how about Another Day? And I said, You're Just Another Day, because that was some single he had out there. Well, I was
right. That was
falling
his
all over
first
the
single
floor
release.
laughing at that line, you know, but in print it looks terrible. Or if I comment about it in, like, Rolling Stone or Playboy, it always looks like I'm freaking out about him, like Dr. Jekyll or something. It's not that at all.